Hello everyone. So today I'm going to deal with decolonizing reality, magic realism as a post-colonial discourse in Salman Rushdie's Midnight Children. So these are my personal information, table of contents, and my research question that how does Rushdie's use of magic realism in Midnight Children function as a decolonizing strategy that challenges Western literary authority and redefine historical narrative. And second is that in what ways do the novel's magical elements like a midnight birth, telepathy, loss of powers, reconfigure revolutionary identity and memory, showing both the miraculous and creation of the nation and its political betrayal. And third one is that how do heteroglossia, blasphemous religious syncretism, and carnivalic narrative voice operate as a political resistance to state religious and monologism. And my hypothesis is that in Midnight Children, Salman Rushdie deploys magic realism as a decolonizing narrative strategy that fuses the miraculous and the everyday to unsettle Western rationalist literary authority and reconstruct nationhood and revolutionary identity, like the miraculous birth of the nation and its subsequent betrayal, and preserve suppressed post-colonial memories through heteroglossia and syncretic blasphemous voice, and expose how revolutionary in energy can classify into authoritarianism, like a partition, borders, the emergency, and the loss of magical powers. So we have introduction. So in that, in post-colonial literature, that magic realism serve as a narrative strategy to reclaim storytelling from colonial rationalism. And here Salman Rushdie's Midnight Children epitomize this decolonizing art, where Saleem Sinai, born at the exact moment of India's independence and become a metaphor for the nation itself, his magical powers mirroring both the miracle and the failure of post-colonial revolution. And as a critic like Slemon and de la Campa in Fogel's article, that not magic realism resist Western literary authority and also expressing a distinct, like a third world consciousness, and that captures the clash between the ancient and the modern, and drawing on Bakhtin's heteroglossia, that Rushdie's novel create a space of multiple conflicting voice, historical, religious, and political, transforming the act of narration into revolutionary discourse about a nationalhood and decolonization. Then we have introduction to magic realism in post-colonial literature. That what is magic realism? So realism is a literary technique that blends the magical and the real within a single narrative framework. Like extraordinary is treated in ordinary. So here we can see that literary mode blends blending fantastical elements with realistic narrative and without falling into pure fantasy. And here Berman quoted in Anderson's article that the rational telling of extreme events forces a radical reconsideration of commonly held assumption. That here we can see that narrating unreal event with rational precision forces reader to reconsider their assumption about about what is possible. And here we can see that key characteristics. So here we see the two inconceivable words coexist. That first is a recognizable and the second is unfamiliar. And next is a supernatural treated as a normal everyday life, like a supernatural incident. They it treated like a normally. And here we can see that magical events is there is no any logic or scientific pattern. Then we have why magic realism in post-colonial writing. So first is magic realism as a resistance. So here we can see that for post-colonial writers, magic realism become a powerful mode of resistance, and it refuses to follow the rules of Western realism and instead allows marginalized societies to narrate these own truths. Sorry. And then here we can see that resistance to monumental theories of literary practice and Western literary canon dominance. It's quoted by Slemon in Fogel. Sorry. Expresses genuinely third world consciousness, as I earlier mentioned that, and dealing with societies where the impossibility old struggle against the uplingly new. And here we can see the three functions. Like here we can see the transformation realism expanding local or regional into universal human experience. And second one is foreshortening of time to examine colonialism and its after effects simultaneously, and foregrounding gaps created by colonial instruction. That magic realism is both an artistic and political strategy of reclaiming history. Why magic realism matter for revolution? So here we can see the link between magic realism and revolution. Revolution in post-colonial societies often resembles an act of creation, something being born out of nothing. So here we can see the theoretical framework that the revolution creates something where nothing existed, and conjuring into existent a national identity and borders and government. So here Fogel argues that a revolution conjures into existent new borders, governments, and national identities. It is itself a kind of miracle, and magic realism is uniquely suited to represent this miraculous transformation, and where ordinary people participate in extraordinary act of nation building. And in practices we can see that supernatural birth at independence. So here we can see the Shiva and Salim's birth, miracle birth, and at that time we find the independence. So it's a national magical creation also. Loss of powers during emergency and revolution betrayal. Here we can see the Adams non-magical birth and normalization and new challenges that he faced new challenges while this time. In Rushdie's contribution, we can find that shows revolution are not always pretty, despite being miraculous. Demonstrate how revolutionary energy can become authoritarian. So, then we can see that Rushdie dramatized how revolutionary ideas can either empower a nation or turn destructive depending on how they are used. Magic realism and revolutionary violence. In this, we can see that the miraculous birth of nation. We can find that birth of Shiva and this Saleem. That time, independence itself is a magical. In this Fogel article, we can find that if you are to construct a book which expresses that reality, you have to write in such a way that permits the miraculous and the every to coexist. And we can find the second point is that revolution is a magical. So by forging independence and freedom, the revolutionaries perform a miracle. And we can find that Midnight's Children is a energy created by founding new nation, and their powers can be used for better or worse depending on intent. Now we have magical elements as a political antagonism. That here we can find the character Shiva, the anti. He called as an anti Saleem also. That Shiva is represented selfish and violent and inconsiderate part of India. So and also Salim is a very good guys. Here we can find that, and Salim uses telepathy when leaving India for Pakistan. So here we can see the Shiva as a anti Salim. So in this, we can find that Rushdie uses magical character and events to symbolize the political conflict. Political conflict, and the most striking example is Shiva. We can see here that Salim's twin birth at the same moment of independence, and while Salim gift is telepathy, communication, and connection. Shiva's power lies in his knees and instrumental of violence. And here we can see loss of powers. So Salim loses telepathy when leaving India for Pakistan. And here we can find that officially disconnected from his magical reality because of the artificiality of international borders. So next we have blasphemy and heteroglossia. So here, that Salman Rushdie's Midnight Children is very connected with this Bakhtin's concept, this heteroglossia. Here we can find that Bakhtin's influence, that heteroglossia, multiple conflict voices versus political mono monologism, and paradox, and aimed sharply and polemically at the official language of its given time. Here we can see that magic realism is a carnivalesque resistance to authority. Here we can find that Rushdie's writing embodies this idea of heteroglossia through its irreverent and blasphemous mixing of religious and culture. In the satanic verses also we can find that, for instance, the Muslim character Gibril plays a Hindu god like Ganesha, and play a role Ganesha, and creating a shamelessly mixed fusion of faith. So that is also a main point about the satanic verses. Then we have the fatwa, that 1989 death sentence for satanic verses by Ayatollah Khomeini, and Rushdie's charges could not be denied. His intervention could not be ignored, but it deserves of his celebrity status. Last we have conclusion that Salman Rushdie's Midnight Children redefined the function of magic realism from a stylistic technique into a political weapon of decolonization. And his use of heteroglossia, parody, and blasphemy subverts a monologic authority, transforming the act of storytelling into revolutionary gesture. As a critic like Fogel and Ans note that such a writing preserves a human experience of history and keeps alive the plurality of postcolonial memory, and Midnight Children thus becomes a both national allegory and metafictional manifesto, and reminding reader that the work of decolonization in art, politics, and identity is ongoing. So these are my references, and thank you. If any question, please ask.
So, Shruti, my question for you: how does literature become a revolutionary act in Rushdie's vision?
Through narrative, that Rushdie reclaim history and challenges that authority, and create a space for the marginalized voice. So, and also he proving that the storytelling itself is an act of decolonization. So that's how literature become a revolutionary act in Rushdie's vision. So.
So my question is, why does Rushdie use magic realism instead of the pure realism?
As per my point of view, that Rushdie believes that realism, sorry, that realism is not strangeness of independence and movement both that miraculous and violent. So here we can see that magic realism expresses the paradox by letting that miraculous and also ordinary coexist naturally. So that's why Rushdie used magical realism rather than this pure realism. So thank you. This is from my side.